Hi, Chor. Thanks so much. It's really good to, see you and look you in the eye and say congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like super proud of you and like you did it. So
Thank
it's
you.
so awesome.
Yeah, it's still surreal.
Yeah.
It's still super surreal.
And thanks for doing this show so soon too, because there's fires going on over there and stuff like that. So,
Right, right. It's pretty bad. Yeah. It
so
up here, like a lot of places and schools have closed down because the air quality is so bad. So
and there's something to do with like a mask shortage too,
yeah,
right?
there is a mask shortage. Like you can't go to the drugstore and pick up masks. I mean, they're like sold out everywhere. I think even on Amazon. It's pretty crazy.
You can get it on Amazon?
No, you can't. Like
Oh,
Amazon's
wow.
like, yeah, on back order. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's pretty crazy, but we're hoping for rain and it's supposed to rain here the next couple of days. So hopefully that will help alleviate some of the
Air, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're lucky. So knock on wood or something that
Right.
we don't have it, but there is something a couple hours away.
I know, like in
that
Malibu, I heard there was a
right,
fire. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There on
Crazy.
social media, there was like something about like I don't want to go off too far on tangents, but I saw like Gerard Butler behind that he's an actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
VP.
Yeah. Yeah.
His house was all burnt
300.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 300. That's right.
Yeah.
Sparta, which is what you could say. You could say stuff like that going into the exam, but
Right. Yeah.
to pump yourself up. If you refer back to episode 1 for our viewers, Eddie's son was saying that there's actually this kind of, you actually want to be relaxed into the bar exam so you don't have that fight or flight response
Correct.
by pumping yourself up.
Right. Right. Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
For
It's,
those.
it's funny you say that because I was there with one of my good friends who also passed too. We were in our hotel room together, and before we walked over to the convention, I was like, dude, we got to do like 15 burpees. We just got to do 15 burpees, and like, cause we're like CrossFit junkies anyways, and so like, yeah, so we did like 15 burpees, and we're like, all right, let's go. It was like
Right.
it was like we were pumped, but we got all our energy out. So by the time we got in there, we were like super calm.
Awesome.
So I
Awesome.
recommend doing burpees before you go into the testing center.
To kind of like get the blood flowing.
Yeah,
and
just
like
get the blood flowing and just to get whatever inks you have, because I mean, if you've ever done burpees, they kind of take a bit out of you, so
right.
it kind of calms you down and you're like, all right, here I am,
Nice.
So yeah.
So we met each other, online through social media, and
Right.
it was more than a year ago we met each other because at the time I didn't even have the podcast. I was really just all about getting people to use this app. But now I've since learned that you kind of have to do more than that and show them how it's useful instead of saying just use it.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
Right. Like I reached out to you and you were nice, and we didn't talk again.
Almost a year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Until June.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll go into that a little later about what was said when we reconnected again a year later.
Right.
But I guess for right now, I'd like to ask you, how many times did it take you to pass?
So I passed my third time. So I took it right after I graduated last year. I took it in July, was not successful. Took it in February, was not successful. Went in this time around, I'm like, I don't care, and having to pass. So yeah, three times. I passed my third time. So
Okay.
Super cliche, but third time's the charm.
So you went to Golden Gate?
I did. Yeah.
School, and,
totally underrated. I'm telling you, I think it is an awesome school for those who are considering or who are like, oh, Golden Gate this, but I totally I love my time there. I miss it. I would do anything to go back. I enjoyed my law school time, and the people I met there were amazing. The professors were I swear freaking 10-star. They were awesome.
Good.
So,
Including Professor Chang.
Oh, love Chang. I mean, first year, if you had her as a 1L, she scared the crap out of you. I mean, literally, she scared the crap out of you. But if you have her in subsequent years, I had her in my 2L year for community property also. She was my crim law professor. She's amazing. She's I don't know. I aspire to be her. She's the tiniest little lady who's just you just has this huge stature about herself. So love her. She's amazing.
I've met her as well, in a way, and my interaction with her was pleasant. And I hope that we will see something like Professor Chang's essay drills
in
the future.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I tell you, you'll need a huge whiteboard to break down how she does it. I mean,
right,
if I feel like every single class, especially in her crim class, she broke down felony murder on a whiteboard, like step by step by step, and took up the whole board. So,
right.
yeah,
So shout out to you, Professor Chang,
she's awesome. Yeah.
I'm still around. Let me know. I would love to do an app for you. So, did you have any like kind of extracurricular activities at?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was in a lot of like, everybody joins a club or two. I was in a couple. A lot of my internships that was like my extracurricular. I did a lot of free volunteer work, but that was really it. I mean, it's law school. You really don't have a lot of time. So,
sure.
all my free time was volunteering / interning. That was it.
Okay.
Nothing. Yeah.
And what field of like what area or field of law?
Am I going to
What?
go to?
Yeah, that you're looking into now, and maybe that ties back to your internship and.
Yes. Yeah. So most of my internships in law school were public interest things. I did the self-help clinic for like family law. I did criminal. I did the public defender's office for, a good 2 semesters a year. So I think eventually I'm still going to just be public interest. I keep telling people I'm going to be like a poor lawyer because I like public interest is my passion. So
that's really nice. I actually have a good friend at the San Francisco Public Defender's Office. I'd like to make the intro to you later. So yeah, that'd be nice. The other Golden Gates person that I worked really, really closely with was from, and she passed as well, was class of 18. And she's at the district attorney in Northern California, but not necessarily San Francisco. So it's kind of like, and she introduced me to actually somebody who potentially I'll be working with for February 19. And she's also in the office, and she also went to Golden Gate University.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you may very well.
Yeah. Juju goes to San Francisco Public Defender's Office a lot, like, because I mean, it's kind of close-ish to our school. A lot of the students there end up interning there. Nice. I didn't intern there because I live in the far East Bay. So most of my internships were, further out. I didn't intern in San Francisco anywhere. But yeah, most GGU students go there.
I hope to be in San Francisco just for the tech scene and, a startup entrepreneur guy. So eventually I want to be out there. Can you get into like your lowest point in bar prep? You could be specific to either the first or the second or the third time. Any of it's fine, and all of it, whatever you.
All right. Well, I see. So like my first time, it was like the blind leading the blind. So I had my law school day one, right? The girl who's been my law school partner, my study buddy from 1L year. I always call my law school day one. We started studying together, and it was the blind leading the blind. We had no idea what we were doing. We were just going to follow the outline of what we were told, and we were just going to do it. And we did like 80% like we were supposed to, and we did everything to a T, read.
And you did that, the big bar, the big company, the biggest company.
The biggest company's competitor, not the B, but the T. But
got it.
Yeah, and I did it because I was a rep, and the products are free as for reps, so that's why.
Great.
But yeah. I mean, I always tell people going to law school, try to rep for a bar prep company because then your bar prep is free. Sure. That was the best advice I got going into law school, so I'm passing that on. So we didn't know what we were doing. So the first time we took it, I really didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, well, a lot of people fail. So if I fail, I'm not really going to chalk it up as anything. And the first time I was only off by like less than 50 points. So I kind of missed the mark by less than 50 points, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm close. Like I can totally do this next time around. And then come February, I take it again, and I get the results. And at this point, I'm like dang near 100 points away. And I'm like, what the heck? Wow. And I thought this time around, like, because I worked with a tutor, I thought I was studying smarter. I was like, okay, I got it this time, because I was so close. No, I took the test and I was so far, and so my lowest point in bar study was probably right after I found out February's result in like May, June. About the time I reached out to you, I did I always tell people you got to do like a be real with yourself gut check, and my gut check was like, dude, like you suck at MBEs, like you like your MBE scores both times. Is what brought your overall score down, Right. And I use the app that everybody uses to do MBEs, and I really sucked at it. I mean, I remember reaching out to you and I showed you, I'm like, I'm only at like 150-ish questions. I was like at 50%, you know, like I sucked after 100 so questions. So that to me was my lowest point, because I was like, I'm never going to be good at MBEs and I'm never going to pass this test because MBEs are worth 50%, you know? So that was my lowest point where I'm like, maybe I got to reconsider my career.
Were you ever considering, honestly, to give up?
You
Because
know,
when I talk to you, I guess you're registered. Once you're registered, you're not really not going to go, right? Because
right. And I did register. And I was going to go and I'm like, dude, I'm just going to give it one more time and then not do it anymore, you know?
really?
Because,
Okay.
well, yeah, because I was like, okay, or at least take a break, right? Maybe I was
Right,
like, okay,
right.
maybe I'm just burning myself out. Maybe I just need
And
to take a break.
reevaluate life.
Right. And so, but then I was like, no, like, I don't want to do this again. So I just kind of like looked at myself, you know, sometimes you just really have to do self-evaluation and realize what your weak spots are. And I think that's what I didn't do the first two times. The first two times, like, oh, I just got to spend more hours doing this,
Right.
or read the outline longer, you know? Whereas this time I'm like, screw the outlines. I was like, screw even the writing, right? Because like I said, my essay scores were pretty good. Like they were really well. I mean, you know, I would guess they were good if you get a 75 on an essay and 65 or 60s where your low is. I mean, I would say that's decent, right?
Right.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna put the writing aside and I'm just gonna do MBEs. So
well, if you don't mind, I'd like to, you know, plug myself a little bit. When we talked, I think we were talking about the PT.
Right.
And I showed you a video that I made, and anyone who's watching or listening right now, feel free to email and I'll send you that video. So I showed you this this video, and it seemed that you really took to it, right? Like you like my way of it. So there's this, I think it was on The Office. It must seem like I watch so much TV, which I kind of do actually. But even on Reddit, right? There's this subreddit. It's called like Explain Like I'm 5. And then there was this joke where he's like, explain it to me like I'm 5. Michael Scott says this, the main guy in The Office. Mm-hmm. And then they explain it to him. And then he goes, explain it to me like I'm 3. Like, do you know what I mean? Because he still doesn't get it. Yeah. So he's trying to get, but anyway, so I think I have a pretty good knack at that, like explaining things really like basically, you know, and I think that's one of my good traits for helping others in bar prep, is saying these things, like anything to like obscure kind of things like the rule against perpetuities. No problem for me. I can totally explain it like super easy. So yeah, getting back to that. So we talked about the PT video, and then you liked it. And then I think I asked you, right? I asked you for your scores.
Came up and I like, oh yeah, sure, I'll send them to you. So I sent you my scores. And then you had what to say about my score. So do you remember what you said? Yeah, do you remember what you said?
It was something like, why are you so concerned about the PT? Did you get a 70?
No, so I got a 65 on the PT.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a 65 on the PT. And then you looked at the rest of my essays and they were like decent too. So
right. Yeah. And so basically, you know, I just said that if your MBE is lower than your writing, you can kind of, I don't know if you can see my hands, but you can kind of like bring your writing up more to compensate for this low thing. But it's easier to just kind of do this kind of thing. And then you end up over 1440. Right.
And I think it's one of those things like, I knew it, but I needed somebody to tell it to me, you know?
Right.
And so when you said that, that's what the whole like, you're right, I don't need to do the essays. Like I need to focus on MBEs.
And I think too is you just kind of just look at the score, right? Like, so, you know, it's really easy math now that it's 50-50. I guess you've never seen that when it was only 35%, the MBEs.
Yeah, no, my year was the first year they did 50-50, yeah.
So it's just easy math. So like whatever you get above, you know, will compensate for your writing. So if you're, or vice versa. So you don't really need that much, you know, especially if your writing score is higher. You don't need that much to get to the 1440.
Right.
But infinitely harder to bring up your, because if you think of it like a bell curve distribution, right? So all the essays are like in the middle at 60, because they wouldn't be passing. So they'd be like 60 and 55.
Right.
than to get into that small, narrow area
Yeah.
that you're trying to do because you're thinking, I'll make my writing better.
Right.
That is impossible.
Right.
But
Right.
if you're in a low MBE area, it's easy to get into that bigger area with everybody else, and then you'll pass because.
Right. And I think that's exactly what happened this time. And I will preach to you all day that in order to pass this exam, there's no doubt you have to be strong at MBEs. Like, I mean, people might disagree with me, but like I said, I've taken it 3 times and passed my 3rd time to know that the 3rd time around, it was the MBEs that made a difference. I mean, my essays were like mediocre to good, but man, in order to get those extra points to give me the passing, I like I said, I'll preach all day that, dude, MBE is the key. It is the key to passing this exam.
One other thing that, like I have a lot of things to say about, the MBE and stuff, and I don't want to get further and further down that. I would like to just, you did it and you're saying MBE, so that should be enough. But the other thing that I would like, people to think about, which is interesting to me, and actually I should shout out my old Crim Pro professor, Professor Frack. He made some kind of comment that, I went to a lower tier school, and he made some kind of comment like, I don't really think any of you guys are good at multiple choice. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going to this school, So, and I remember my classmates, and then my leader, who was like a 3rd year, she was like super annoyed at that comment, but you gotta, it's like kind of gut check. You gotta be. Yeah, if I would have scored 170 out of I don't even know if it's scored that way anymore.
I still think it's 180. I think it is.
Right. Yeah. So if you score like 170, you're going to Berkeley, you're going to Stanford, whatever, right? Scholarship too, probably.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, so a lot of, like, the majority of the people will go to lower law schools, right? That's the way it is, right? They're harder to get in. So you go into the other ones, and you're looking at, and this has nothing to do with your intelligence or your ability to practice law. It's really just about this multiple choice thing. It's really a technique. So you have to think, if your LSAT wasn't that high, you're working against people who can score really high LSATs.
Right.
Right? You're with them, and they're very good at multiple choice. And we all know that the LSAT doesn't really have anything to do with law. It's a logic thing. So, so it's really that skill, like it distills down to that skill of doing multiple choice. Thanks for that. Sorry to interject that.
No, definitely.
But it's an interesting kind of thought. And thanks for sharing your low point. So this time, I guess we've answered this next one already. The thing that helped you pass this time was the MBEs?
Unfortunately, we'll never know, but I strongly believe it was, because like I said, the first 2 times my essays were just about passing. And it was the MBEs that brought that score really low, So I truly believe it is. And, another thing about MBEs is, being the Asian person we are, I mean, it covers like 7 topics. So if you're like super strong at the MBEs and the MBE topics, you've already got if you really think about it, at least 3 of the 5 essays covered, right? And so for me, when I was doing the math in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to focus on these 7 topics and getting good at these and knowing the little nuances, because this is going to help me on my essay as well, So like I said, in my bar prep this time around, I'm not going to lie. I mean, maybe I kind of roulette it a little bit, but I spent at least 70, 80% on just MBEs. And then, the last 2 weeks is when I did essays. And that's when I found the bar drill app the best during that time. So
thank you. Yeah. And that's actually what I've done before, is I'll be working with someone and I'll say, I guess I did that with you. Is that I'll say, I'll unlock the app for you, but you got to do all the questions within your MBE system. You know?
Right.
So, and you did that, and you screenshotted me, and from that point, I know, you know what I mean, that you're probably going to pass, and you're going to use this app the way I intended, which is fine. Like, people have all sorts of ways to use the app.
Right.
And they all sound pretty good to me.
Right.
But really what the intention of the app is to really just, sorry, but I'm gonna bring up what you told me outside of this
Mhm.
conversation, is that you said you would line up like 7, and you can do this without the app too. So
Right.
you line up 7 essays in each subject,
Correct.
and then you would just run through them in the app, and you
Right.
would see how the issues come into play and
Right.
then how they're addressed, right?
Right. And so you see the same, for example, like if you're looking at community property, you see the same rules come up, like you see Lucas come up, you see anti-Lucas come up, you see tracing come up, right? And so
Right.
the thing is, like, the reason, I mean, this is my whole method, is like, the reason why I did it that way was because I know I didn't have a lot of time left because I spent so much time doing MBEs. But what I did know was like, I banked on that. Okay, I know I can write, right? Everybody can IRAC. So I know I can write. But the thing is, I need to see the law and see how the issues that are tested, the issues that keep coming up, right? So I think 7 is a good number. At least for me, it was. 7 is a good number to see. I saw at least, I would say at least 90% of the issues come up within those 7 essays, and a lot of them repeated, right? So my thing was like, if I can get through each topic and just get through 7 essays, not just, I mean, I didn't get through writing 7 essays for each topic, but at least I got to read through, and I did the, like I said, with your app, I got to get through 7, reading all the different answer choices, right? So for me, it was like, by the time I took the exam, I was like, I know every issue that could possibly come up,
Right.
And so I wasn't worried about it, and yeah, and then lo and behold, I passed.
I remember from our conversation is the thing about the MBEs that I said is they're it was 3 things too. Getting back to your number thing.
Yep.
It's masterable,
Yep.
predictable.
Yep.
And masterable, predictable, and something else. Dang it.
This slipped you.
This part I'll cut it out. Masterable, predictable, and objective.
I just remember masterable and predictable.
Finite, maybe?
It is finite. There's only a certain amount of ways they can test you on it, but master predictable is pretty good. Maybe just go with the 2.
Okay. Yeah, so we know, it's going to be like a fairly even distribution of the 7 subjects.
Right.
And there's really only a limited amount of ways they can ask you certain topics, right?
Right. For me, like and I've told you before, the scariest topic for me, and this is where you embrace the suck, right, was race statutes and property, right? Because the questions are like this long, like a whole page long, and you're trying to find out who recorded what, so by the time I got to be really good at those, I honestly was like looking forward to those, which is kind of sick when I think about it now. But I mean, it got me to the point where I was doing so many of that particular one, those particular questions, that when I saw those, it was like the same thing. It was the same thing. You look for certain things, certain keywords, it'd be like same thing to get the right answer, So once you do them so many times, like you say, there's only a finite way. There's a finite amount of ways they can test this particular topic, right? And after a while, they all sound the same, And I know I tell you, like, it's kind of
MBEs, essays, and PTs. You know what I mean? It's all the same. It's all the same. It's not this like ever growing like body of law. Like, every couple months they're like, oh, they made this new revision to law. No, it's if anything, it's these big landmark cases that change things.
Right.
But if they would test something like that, and if they did, you're going to remember it because it was in the news or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So don't worry about that. Like, worry about what's been tested, and they're going to do it again, or some form of it.
Right.
And you said something really cool before too, is that these essay prompts are like a big MBE, but like a bunch of MBE. So like these little nuances, how they can test within. Are in the facts of the essay.
Exactly. And I think it just goes, I think they go both hand in hand. I think if you get really strong at MBEs, you look at the question and it's like a huge MBE and you're like, all these rules just kind of pop up, That
you learn from the MBEs, right? Like the nuance rules. Like I just went over an MBE with someone yesterday, and it was this evidence, right? And some guy cut a tree. You probably remember this question, but he cut a tree that he purported to be not on his property, on the city's property.
Right.
And so the 2 answer choices that were close was, one is like, no, this shouldn't be admitted for like a subsequent remedies. That
Yeah, subsequent
But
remedy.
then the thing is, it's like an exception to that is if there's like an ownership issue,
Yeah, right.
that will like be the exception to that rule.
Right, right,
And
right,
that's answer C. So you kind of you learn that from the MBE, you know, especially when it's so tricky and you're like,
right,
you know, and let's say you get it wrong, it sticks in your craw
right,
harder.
right,
And
right.
then if you get an evidence essay, you'll see these little things that someone said that a
Right.
lot of people may miss, but you can write an IRAC about it, you know?
Right, right. And that's
So-
just extra points for you. And that's all it is. The bar exam is all about points, right? If you don't talk about it, you lose the points, you know? And that's all it is when you get really good at the nuances, and MBE is so good at making sure you know those. By the time you get to the essays, you know those little rules to throw them out there to get those extra points, you know? So, like I said, I'm going to scream MBE all day because I'm telling you it's what got me to pass. But I really feel like if you hone in on MBEs, dude, that's 7 topics you'd be really good at. And that's at least, I feel like it's at least over 50% of the essay portion. And I tell people like, yeah, once you see the fact pattern, the rules just jump out at you, right? Because sometimes you see a fact pattern like, oh man, that's this, or that's this rule, right? So you just kind of plug in the fact patterns into your rule too. Sometimes for me, the fact pattern kind of brings up or reminds me of a certain rule. So yeah, I mean, I know this is weird, but like statute of frauds, right? There's like an exception to the writing requirement is the merchant's conforming memo, right? So when I see an essay that talks about, you know, these two merchants doing stuff and then they don't write anything down, but then like there's like a memo that goes through. So I'm like, that's an exception, right? So it's little things like that once you start doing MBEs, you're like,
because you have all these little stories.
Right, right.
So then you remember, oh,
right.
I see this story again. And there's only a limited amount of ways to do that.
Right.
Is you have 2 merchants that write stuff back and forth.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's no other way. You can't have not a merchant.
Right.
And then, or you wouldn't have that rule.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right. And a lot of things I was telling you too is like, you can't ever get comfortable with the bar. You can't be like, oh, I'm good with this topic. You know, I'm like, I think I'm at a good point. Like you can't ever get to that point until you finish the exam. Like it's one of those, you just pace yourself and keep going, because if you get to the point where you're like, I think I got this, that's when the bar exam is going to come back to bite you, you know?
So that's when you finished, right? Getting back to what you did this time. So so the whole strategy was to finish the full body of what the program gave you in terms of MBEs, real MBEs.
Correct.
And then you would start repeating those, right? But then during that time, you said you worked on writing.
Yes.
Did you ever actually submit essays?
I did submit some because our school had a dedicated bar grader, and shout out to her.
Shout out to Alicia.
Yeah. She, I swear, she must have graded like 1,000 essays from various students. But I had them graded. And, you know, they always came back with good remarks. I wasn't too worried about that part, but it at least instilled in me the last 2 weeks, like, okay, at least I'm remembering these rules and I know how to write it out. So so to answer you, yes, I did write them out.
And I think the app, getting back to the app and to the PT, did you submit a PT to her as well? Perhaps?
I didn't. No, I didn't. Yeah.
But okay. But I guess from all of this, you see the formatting. Right. You know what I mean? Like even in the app, you see how a good answer is responded to, like how they'll break out certain things. Like if it's elements, they'll break it out or what have you. Right. So there's a certain kind of, so you're not going to do weird. So you saw 7 of each subject, and that's a lot, right? Right. So you're not going to do any weird stuff that the grader is going to be like, what? You know, like it's going to be very, so that's the good thing. That's kind of all you need at the end. Like the way you did it, you know, like you don't really need to relearn.
No, and I think that's the biggest thing is for people retaking this again is like trust in the knowledge that you've already soaked in the last couple of times and put it to use.
Plus law school.
Practice it, you know, like I can't stress enough how important practice is, you know, because like I said, I've like, because I've taken it like, you know, 2 times before, this last time I'm like, I don't need to sit here for hours and hours. And this time I didn't study as much. I actually worked full time when I was studying for the bar this time around. Maybe that's a good thing because I didn't get to sit here and soak on it, but I didn't study as much, or at least as many hours as I did. And I found that was actually more beneficial because when I did have time to study, I was practicing. It was more practical. So that is key. You have to practice. You can't just perform on game day. There's this quote that says, I think I told you this, the quote that says, practice like it's the real thing and do the real thing like it's practice, and that's how that was the whole thing. Yeah. That was the whole thing playing in my head. Yeah. I was playing that in my head the whole time I was studying, the whole time I was in the bar exam. Like, this is just another day where I'm writing out essays, so it wasn't too bad.
I went back into our messages and it was June 15th. I think you only had 164.
Yeah.
So you really got obsessed, and it was great. And, and then I would check in with you later and you'd be like, I did 25 on my lunch or whatever. And you would just keep on cranking.
Right.
And I guess, you just got a little OCD with it. Right. And that's what, and there's this other important thing that for the people that I'm working with now for the February 19 is that I'm telling them that right now it's super painful. But it in startup world, we have this thing called the J curve, and up and to the right. And so there's a little down, but you really take off like exponentially.
Right.
And I recall that you were telling me at the end, you were doing like hundreds a day. Dude, right?
It was like, thinking about it now, it was like ridiculous. Like, I was literally, there'll be days where I would do 300 in a day, and I mean, that sounds insane.
But it was near the end and you were just flying through,
right? It was near the end and I was like, oh, I recognize this. Like, I know the answer, and I was just flying through them. But like, you have to get through that uncomfortable part in the beginning. Like you said, that whole part before you accelerate. Once you get to that part and you're like, oh man, I've seen this type of evidence question before. You start to get quicker and quicker, and this time around, I remember the first 2 times I took the MBE day, I was like rushing towards the end, or I was filling in the last 10 bubbles. This time around, I had plenty of time to go back and make sure I didn't miss mark, make sure I can double check the ones I put a tiny question mark on. I actually had like 10 or 15 minutes to check.
For each section.
Yeah, for each section, And so,
because it's just through sheer practice. You just don't need that much time, right?
You don't.
You know what you're looking for.
Right.
You just go in and you're used to this, right?
Right.
So what was the total number? And I don't mean this to intimidate any bar takers.
Oh man.
But it just goes to show how she was at 164 in
like mid-June.
Mid-June. So that means she did it in like a month.
Yeah.
And like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
She did this, and then she got to the point where she could do 300 a day.
Yeah.
So what do you think the total number was?
I think the final number, because I was still doing them at lunch during bar exam too. I think the final number was somewhere around 2,900. It was almost 3,000. It was almost 3,000. I mean, obviously they were repeating by then, so I got a lot quicker. But it was dang near almost 3,000. And I tell you, like, that's the kind of dedication you have to give to this. You have to kind of be OCD. You kind of have to be like, I'm going to be so good at this. Right. I'm going to be so good at this that it's going to be boring,
Right.
That's the only way to do it.
And go right to the end. Like, don't rest on your laurels. Don't start, doing something like be obsessed, look, when you were going through, I'm sure at the rate of 300 a day. And if you think about it, we only get 200 a day. So it was like just kind of a casual walk on that Wednesday.
Right.
So you were flying through. Did you ever have that feeling? And this is kind of like a question where I know the answer, but did you have that feeling like you were looking to get a wrong one? So do you see what I mean? Like uncovering that rock, all rocks so you're like, dude, I want to get one wrong so I can make sure batten down the hatches, like kind of like what you were doing with the race statutes.
Right. And there were a couple of topics that when you say I do think about, especially in evidence too, like when I'm thinking about hearsay, because there's a ton of like hearsay exceptions, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I was doing hearsay, I was like, I just want to get one wrong just to either reinforce my knowledge or tell
Right.
me, you know what I mean? Like, or let me see the explanation why I get it wrong so it can sink in, you know?
Right. Right.
But towards the end there, because I was doing them so much and I've seen them all, I wasn't getting any more wrong, you know, like my percentages were going up, you know, and I'm one of those people, like, if I get it wrong once or at least twice, I'll remember not to do it again, you know? And so
Right.
towards the end there, my percentages for all topics were in the like 80% too, you know? So not only did I hit like dang near 3,000, but the percentages were like in the 80s. So
Right. And you got to say you're right, because when you go around for the second time, it cancels out your wrong answer.
right.
So then your percentage kind of whatever goes up.
And I think part of my OCD is if I had more time, I was trying to get like 100 on all the time,
right.
but I didn't get that far.
I think that was one of the, so we had, getting back to the 3, it was finish, right, was your first goal. The whole body, meaning the 19 whatever, the 2,000 questions that the program gives you.
Right.
2 was to then do so many that you start to work your percentage up now.
Correct.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And during the first level, or the first step or stage, you don't really care about accuracy so much. But the second you start to really fine-tooth comb it, you know, and then like, dang, I shouldn't have got this wrong. I know this, you know, like, and then the third was to go for just maximum volume. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you pretty much did the whole thing.
Right.
All 3, especially at 80 at the end. I mean, I wonder if you scored in the 1700s, 1800s. Who knows, right?
I don't know if it was
probably right. We'll say probably.
I'll never know. But I honestly, I'm so curious myself. I'm kind of curious myself.
Right.
Only
there is a way, actually, I think what you can do to find out what you got is if you ever apply to another state, you can take their attorney's exam and. Right.
Oh yeah, they'll give you those transfer the MBE scores.
Right, and then you'll definitively find out what you got.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'll get it any state because the MBE score in California is so freaking high, right?
Right.
Yeah. But that's in thinking about it now, that's just crazy. I don't expect people to do what I did, but I just want people to know that once you get past the uncomfortable of just doing the MBEs and sitting there, it's only to your benefit because it's going to help you sit there during that Wednesday. You know, it's going to help you get there. And you're like, this isn't hard to sit here and do a 200 question set. You know, like I said, if you're an athlete, you know, you kind of overtrain or overshoot to do something. So come game day, you know, you're ready. Right. And so that's how I was looking at it. It's like, I'm going to do a little more and suffer now because come then it's just like conditioning. It's not an extra, it's not something I've never done. This is just conditioning, you know? So
right.
Yeah.
Before May, I'm going to do a separate podcast about anxiety.
Yeah.
We're waiting for results.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wanted to touch on it. Maybe you'll come back for that episode. I haven't even really heard of a good solution yet on what to do. So if you could share like your anxiety any of the times, like, so the first time, I think what I've gleaned from the other episodes is no one knows what the heck happened, right? You have no idea if you passed or if it was good enough.
Right.
And the second one, you failed. So the anxiety's higher because you think it could happen again. But I posit that it's actually could be a little lower because it's kind of like I failed once before. So, you know, it's not that stressful because but I think your anxiety was at an all-time high this time because you felt your performance.
You know,
you did 3,000 MBEs, so that would stress you out more.
No, and I want to go along with that. That's true. My anxiety did kick up higher because I did do so many. And, you know, after the bar exam, you know, in forums and just in people talking, they were talking about how hard the MBEs were, right? And in my mind, I'm like, okay, because I didn't think they were that hard because, and I'm not saying it's because I'm like better than everybody. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying once you start doing the questions and you recognize the patterns, it is just different names plugged in with different scenarios of this exact same thing. It's like it's like a triangle and they're just kind of decorating around it, but it's the exact same triangle still, you know? So that's how I looked at it.
I with Noelia on episode 6, I used silhouettes.
Yeah.
And then I felt kind of weird. So we'll go with triangle.
Yeah, right.
Or shape, right?
Yeah,
like some are.
Right. It's just the same shape and they've just covered it up. But when you uncover it, it's the exact same shape. And that's how I felt with the MBEs. But like, I mean, yeah, they probably were a bit tougher, but I didn't think they were extremely hard. And I walked away with it going, that wasn't that bad. Like I was wondering which one was the experimentals, because I felt like, okay, which one was the hard one, So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a benefit you get when you do so many MBEs. You get comfortable, or you get to the point where you're so used to them
Seeing
that
all the shapes.
right.
All
And
the,
so my
all the
anxiety,
silhouettes.
so going back to anxiety, that kicked in on overdrive, because I'm like, man, maybe I just freaking failed it because everybody's talking about how hard it was. And I'm like sitting here just marking,
Right. I perused the Reddit bar exam, and I know I talked to you after, and I said, did you find it as hard as these people, and I remember you saying, I don't know, like, I think you didn't want to jinx yourself, but
Right.
you've
I mean,
seen so many shapes,
Right. Part of me wanted to be like, nah, Sandy, like these were just like the practice ones, and I wanted to say that, but I'm like hearing all these things and I'm thinking, maybe I did really like horribly, so I didn't say anything. And so the anxiety, like November 1st was like totally pouring in, and I was scared because I'm like, man, like and it was one of those, like, I don't want to pay for this again. I don't want to spend another couple months sitting at this table doing this, so.
Would you say it was, so was it higher anxiety then?
I think, yeah, for me, this is probably the highest anxiety point for me, because I knew that if I had to go this time around to take the exam again, I for sure couldn't do it. This last time where I passed, I took 3 weeks off. I didn't have that time to take off again. So I would probably have to work right up until the exam. And that was already giving me anxiety thinking about that. And because I invested so much more and I switched my strategy up to kind of, I almost want to say like I gambled, that
in a crazy new strategy that no one tells you to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But the thing is, like, I can't tell you that my method is going to work for everybody, but everybody needs to realize what their weakness is and spend a little more time on that and kind of bank on what they're strong at,
Right.
So the anxiety was high because I'm like, man, I probably just jacked this one up worse, especially when I saw like a couple weeks before November 1st, they were saying how the MBE scores across the country were so low, right? And I was like, man, that's gonna suck. So yeah, the day of, I mean, I was like an emotional wreck. I mean, I was just like a hot mess. Even before I checked, I was like a hot mess. So
we talked a few times, and I wanted to get you to do like an anxiety kind of podcast, but to be honest, I'm not sure if I've really heard of a solution to it yet.
I don't think there is.
I think the best thing you can do is just keep super busy, like super, however you can, just think about anything that's going on right now. I'm not saying make yourself busy, or, some people are not that busy, whatever your life situation is though, think about, what you're going to have for dinner tonight. What ingredients do you need? Like, kind of overly get into now to help you not think about the result.
I'll tell you something for me, the 2 times I failed and this time around to kind of get past my anxiety, what worked for me was obviously not thinking about myself. I went out and did things for other people. Like I went and helped other people do things when I needed, I know people needed to be service, I would go out help them do stuff. So it got my mind off it, and plus it made me feel better about myself, knowing that I was able to help somebody, right? Knowing I'm in this helpless spot myself, right? I'm in this super helpless spot myself, but not thinking of myself at this point and going to do something for someone who I know they need the help. So that totally helped me, like I said, stay busy, not think about the anxiety. And the day, like I have that to remember and to reflect on and not have the anxiety creep up on me.
To take a turn for the more negative, did you have any family members or loved ones that kind of were negative? And
I am like...
I saw a picture of you on Facebook and you seem to have a very supportive family. So
I do. Like I have like 8 other siblings, so I have like, there's 9 of us total. My mom was literally pregnant throughout the whole 80s, right? It's crazy. No, I didn't have anybody being negative. I'm like first generation here in America to, finish college, to go through law school. So like everybody was always rooting me on. The first time I failed, everybody's like, "Oh, you got this," and everybody's tired of hearing that you got this. Try it again, right?
Right.
But and I know they were sincere about it, and I like whatever I needed, they had my back. So I I am blessed to have such a good support system. I didn't have any even friends. I didn't have any negativity. I mean, yeah, it was sad to see some of my friends from law school, move on and pass the bar and do things. But that was just me. They weren't negative towards me. That was just me being negative on myself, But
right.
Yeah, there was no negativity. And like I said, I'm grateful for that, because I don't think when you're studying for the bar, you could even take that. Because even positive feedback, you still get irritated. Because when people were telling you, you're good, you can get this next time. Like the first two times when I failed, people kept telling me that. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I failed,
Right.
But
Actually, I might try and go back and find it, but it was on Reddit. Put it out there, like my spouse or my fiance is taking the bar exam, and what can I do to support them?
Right.
And I responded back, and I'll kind of nutshell it, or make it clear. I kind of said that everyone's always like, you will pass, but that's kind of like almost like a negative feedback loop, because of course we all want to pass.
Right.
So if you know what I mean,
right.
Like if you keep on saying you'll pass. So more so, I think what I told her, and I showed one of my good friends, Wizzy. I'm trying to keep people anonymous, but I showed one of my good friends, and he liked it. And I said, it is better, definitely, to say, instead of you will pass, you're going to do this, whatever, this kind of adding more pressure.
Right.
Impliedly, is by saying, no matter what, I still love you and I'll be there for you.
Right. It's way better, because do you know how much pressure I felt myself? I was like, oh, you'll get it this next time around. You're like, dang, what if I don't?
Right.
I know. And so like that even put more pressure, and you get more anxiety. And like for me, it was like, I don't want to hear that, like that's not what I want to hear. I mean, things like that, like you want to hear, like, you know what, no matter what happens, this test doesn't define you, just, you gave it all, or, you did what you had to do, and, and I'll still love you. Like, that's all you want to hear, really, right?
Right.
You don't want to hear you're smart, you're going to get this, you're this, I'm just like, no, like that's like, it's not bad. I mean, they always mean it, in a good way, and always good intentions, but like they have no idea the effect it's giving you, right?
Right. And it's kind of weird, because you feel like you're giving them positive encouragement.
Right.
But trust me, anybody who takes the bar wants to pass. So like by you saying, like, it's kind of this negative, like I said, it's a negative feedback loop that kind of puts more pressure in a negative way on the person. So is there anything you want to say to someone studying for this next bar examination?
I mean, other than what I said about realizing what your weaknesses are, especially if this is your second, third, fourth, however many times, realize what your weaknesses are and spend more time fixing that, right? And trust in what you're already good at, because I believe everybody taking the bar is good at some parts of it, right? I mean, whether it be the writing part, the MBE, whatever, So trust in that part and work on what you're weak at, I mean, really embrace the suck and like start doing it, put in the work. And like I said, this exam is not an exam you can ever put your guard down. You have to go at a steady pace and condition yourself throughout the whole thing and finish, There were some points when I was doing bar study this time around that I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm good. But like reality kicked me like, no, you failed twice before. You're not good,
Right.
So you have to like remind yourself that. I think that's really just it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't want to say it was luck that I passed, but I think
it wasn't luck, Chor. I'll tell you, I know how you worked. And for anybody who I'm talking to now, I'm going to use your obsessiveness with the MBEs and how hard you worked and the amount you did as an example, of you did it, and it wasn't luck, and it was really all you. I did this thing to you in June, which I call the MBE Jedi kind of mind trick, where I show you how it's really limited shapes of these MBEs, and the essays are the same thing too. It's shape, and the same thing with the PT. But I showed you really that the MBEs seem like it's never ending. Like it's just so many, right? Like Barbary has thousands, everybody has thousands. So you think like, how can I ever know? Mm-hmm. But if you break it down into the shapes, you can really get it down to, I don't know how many, but definitely under 100.
Yeah, I mean, I know I go back to that conversation too, and I've told you before, it's I reached out because I was at a low, and I remember you telling me that, and it was like a light switch went off. It went on,
Well,
it's like it was always, the light was always there, but the switch wasn't on. And when you finally told me that, I was like, duh, this is how you get it done, And so
well, just for the audience, I'm in the process of making what I call the Jedi MBE video. So get at me for that too. What I did with Chor in messages, in the messaging, I'm gonna do in this video so you could see it. And the thing is, I think before we actually started recording, I wanted to say that we're in agreement that we want to help everyone pass this bar. Like, we don't want anything out of this. This is like free, So that's why I've done the PT videos, or I'm going to do the MBE videos, so we can put it out there for free and people know just what it is you did.
Right.
Or what inspired you to do to work really hard and get obsessed like you did. I have been talking to people and they've been reaching out to see if I had some more one-on-one kind of like a premium kind of special service, because we all have busy lives. You're going to be practicing law. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So and others, but I've gotten together a few people and I got Chor to agree, and for a certain price, we can offer a premium access, because some people need that support, or that's not even support, like a security, like someone that is there, and it will give access to Chor included and two others that are experts at MBEs and the bar exam, really, at this point.
Right.
So you'll not have access to just one person. It will be four, and it'll be a modest price. And it will also include the app, which makes you very efficient at recognizing the shapes of the essays.
Right. And what I want to say about the app is I really want to stress that, like I said, I used it and you didn't even tell me how to use it, right? But I used it for the purpose of, hey, this is how they've tested these topics. They've only tested it these ways. And the app is perfect for showing all the different ways that they've tested all the topics, So for me, at crunch time, because I spent so much time doing MBEs, like I said, it was perfect to see each topic the certain way they test it. Like, for example, I'm going to use contracts, right? Some essays I look and it's straight formation. So you're going to have the whole offer, acceptance, and all the little nuances that go with it.
Well, sometimes governing law.
Right.
All that.
So, you throw that in the beginning, right? And then sometimes you'll read it and you'll see that, oh my good golly, it's breached. So it's going to be anticipatory repudiation and all that stuff, right? So once you start, for me, using the app was perfect to see all of that, And sometimes you get kind of bored. I mean, at least for me, I got kind of bored because, like, okay, this essay sounds just like the essay from like 3 years ago, except the names are changed around, And you'll see that. I remember taking this exam and going, the contracts exams essay, for example, I remember doing the exact same sales contract for like a couple years ago in practice, like a week ago, So for me, when I saw that, I was like, game on, But that's why I think your app is amazing, because you're able to get all that stuff in a short amount of time. So during the last month of bar study, the two apps, if you had to go through my phone, that I used the most was the drill app and, obviously the big other app. Yeah.
And you know what? I've gave them love every single episode so far. And I do love them. But I think more than anything, what you need is, you just need anything. And I'm going to ask you if you agree, is I think you really just need something that you can do mobile, so you can knock out 25 at lunch.
Right. Or in the bathroom, or,
going to sleep, or in bed. You don't want to be pulling out this MBE book and a pencil and, you know what I mean? And trying to figure that out. You want to be knocking them out so you could get to the total question sooner, and you can start repeating and fine-tooth combing it. So basically, the way I see it, there's one company that uses the real questions. I wholeheartedly recommend them. We do have a promo code that if you're a new user, it should take like some certain, like $30 off or something. But there is others from like the K company, the T company too, I think had something on your phone, right?
They did have something on the phone, but it wasn't as user friendly. I don't know if it changed, but they have a really ginormous book for you. But the app was not. it wasn't as user friendly as the big company that focuses on just MBEs.
So this is a good question then. Would you
Yeah.
say that it is about mobility and knocking these out?
Yeah, because for me, like I said, while I was commuting or sitting in the passenger side or waiting, at the line at the DMV, it was really nice to have a mobile, okay, I can read an essay while I'm here, right?
Right.
I can read an essay while I'm here and I can try to figure out the rules, or I can sit here and I can do 10 MBEs while I'm waiting for the DMV to call my number. And for me, and another good thing is too, is like, if I get an explanation, I can screenshot it and I can go review the rule later from my,
Right.
I call
Camera
my
roll.
dictionary. Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'll just go to my dictionary, which is my big T book with all the big outlines. I'll just go there to make sure I can understand the big rule better, So
Right.
that's just another good thing too, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I got to look that up. If I didn't screenshot, I wouldn't remember,
Right.
So
Yeah, so it's good that way. Yeah, I guess just using technology to our advantage,
right.
Okay, great. Would you mind if people email you
No, people can reach out. Like I said,
separately? This is just
yeah,
separate, like you
yeah.
one-on-one, just any questions and
Yeah, no, people can totally email me because, like I said, it is my goal to get as many people to pass this as possible. It is a passable exam. I know it is because I did it and many people have done it. This isn't like an end all. And another thing too is I don't want people to get hung up on like their numbers, right? I mean, like I told you, I went from almost passing to 100-point deficit to passing. So don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to, oh, I was so close or so far away. Some people are so hung up on that, I don't think that really has anything to do with you passing or not. So I would just say don't waste time thinking about that.
But you know what? Just to get back to the importance of the MBEs, sorry, because we could go on forever, but
Yeah.
But the one thing is, that's the good thing about the MBE is like these big swings, you can make the MBE not swing like that.
Right.
Because you can't, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's very objective. There's only one right answer out of the four.
Right. So, and that's what I thought too, is like, if I'm going to beat this exam, it's through the whole not subjective part, because like I said, I could get a mean grader and like grade my essays harshly,
Right.
A 2-minute stoplight guy could be grading my essay, So I wanted to excel in the part that I knew that if I got right, there's nothing that could take away from me, So that's why I feel like I said, preaching again, that I think MBEs are key. Is being really good at MBEs is the key to passing this exam, especially like now that it's over, it's 50%, So that and practice, I can't stress that enough. If you don't have time to practice, get on the app and start reading the essay so you see the different patterns, and at least write 1 or 2 out. I mean, like I said, I didn't have the opportunity to write out all 7, but I at least got a chance to write 1 or 2 out because I got a feel for it. You just got to practice writing.
Thank you so much, Tor. Thank you.
Oh, no
thank
problem.
you so much. And thank you for coming on so immediately after results.
Yeah, I'm still on a high, so it's okay.
Because people are on that super low right now.
Right.
And I think this will really help a lot of people right now.